I know some people will be like, what do I mean by America profits from black pain? Let's be real. Black pain is profitable in America. From slavery to the prison system, from trauma-filled music to Hollywood films, black sufferings has been turned into entertainment, content, and business. But here's the problem. While the world watches, copies, and profits off black trauma, black people rarely sees justice, healing, or wealth in return. Let's ask the real question. Why does America keep cashing in on black pain without paying us a dime? Not even a dime, right? So let's watch those videos, then I'll be back with the commentaries.
Okay, so let's talk facts. Racism isn't just about ignorance or hate, right? It's about profit. Because slavery didn't just build cotton empires, it built Wall Street. Black bodies were literally collateral for loans, insurance policies, and investments. So you fast forward to today, and you have a private prison system that still racks in millions for mass incarceration. You got news outlets that boost ratings by pushing fear and division because outrage sells. And let's not forget, redlining real estate, discriminatory insurance, and predatory lending, they didn't just happen. They were built on racism, and they made people rich. See, racism has never been just about feelings. It's been about economics, because if you can dehumanize a group, right, you can exploit them. And if you can exploit them, you can profit. That's how the entire country could claim freedom and opportunity while building in wealth off of people who were denied both. So when folks talk about ending racism, it's not just about being nicer. It means redistributing power, wealth, and access, not to punish, but to repair, to balance the scale that's been tilted for centuries. But here's the catch, because people raised on privilege disguised as normal hear justice and feel like it means loss. They've never had to imagine fairness without their head start. But justice isn't scarcity, y'all. It's stability. Ending racism doesn't take something from you. It builds something with all of us. But to get there, we have to admit what too many are still afraid to say out loud. Racism was never just a glitch in the system. It is the system.
I don't know. Arabs love opening up corner stores in the middle of black neighborhoods, but they don't like black people. It's so weird. They love to use us for profit, but they don't like us. Make it make sense. You're going there, everything is overpriced. They watching you as if you stealing.
They beat him up and his face was unrecognizable. And for your black ass to say that is fucking insane. So y'all really telling me that Zeus reviewed, edited, and then approved that footage to be aired? Insane. See, it's one thing that she said it. It's another thing that they decided to air it. By this point, everybody knows that Zeus is toxic, yet y'all keep supporting it. Y'all are acting so enraged about this comment, but Zeus has been on bullshit with the black community. I saw one video talking about, oh, she's young, she might not know the history. That girl is not young. She is 28 years old from Detroit, a black ass city. I stay here too, and I know the motherfucking history of Emmett Till. He was a 13-year-old boy who was lynched because some white woman said that he whistled at her. They beat him up and his face was unrecognizable. And for your black ass to say that is fucking insane. And I swear, all the black ass people on that production team, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. Sitting up here profiting off black pain. Literally straight humiliation. Y'all just be kikiing. It's so funny. I mean, good. I'm all for black people coming up. But Zeus is literally a slap in the face to our history, to our elders, and to any black person who has had to fight to be seen as human. And while Summer was dumb as hell for making that comment, Zeus was even stupider for motherfucking airing it insensitively. Y'all just didn't care about the family, did y'all? Y'all didn't give a damn. So that's why I just encourage y'all to stop supporting evil shit. That is it. That is all. Y'all stay safe and y'all stay sane out there. Goodbye.
When are y'all going to understand that the politicians, the government, these police officers, these judges are all behind the corruption? They don't give a fuck what happened to you or your life. They just want to profit off the pain. That's why there's violence in the world today, because they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They're corrupt. Listen to me clearly. All them with these badges on, these police officers, they're behind it. The government, the police officers, the lawyers are pushing this bullshit upon the civilized people every fucking day in our communities. They don't want us here. They hate us. They don't like us. They don't want us to live. They want the worst to happen to us. That's why they do this shit. Pay attention. When is y'all gonna wake up and understand? They don't give a fuck about us. How many times does it has to be said? Nobody gives a fuck about us.
Has your family profited off the suffering of other black people?
I'm Portuguese, so I will always have benefited from the pain of black people in one way or another. I mean, I benefited from it directly. My grandfather was white and had a coffee plantation in a vast expanse of land that was given to him by the Portuguese government, without the consultation of the people who already lived there. The ramifications of the money of colonialism, of chattel slavery, are so embedded in our capitalist system that I think you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone who hasn't benefited, even if tangentially, from this horrible, oppressive system that crushed black people throughout history, because our system was built on the bones of it. Our infrastructure in Western countries was built on the back of it. Even the money that was invested in ex-colonies was money that was invested after the exploitation of the locals. So I think a better question would be, who are the main beneficiaries from it who continue to benefit structurally?
I started searching and trying to figure out how can I find this funding source.
This is absolutely amazing, and we got to make sure to blow this creator up. So as we all know, Shiloh Hendricks has raised over $650,000, on her way to $1 million. Give, Send, Go, doesn't really care. People have tried to report it, doesn't matter. So this creator used her coding skills to dig into the HTML and JavaScript.
They are not the bank. So I thought, like, we got to find a bank. Most banks, especially payment processors, they will cut that shit off with any type of doubt or controversy. They'll usually just cut it off, right? I went and I broke down the code on Give, Send, Go's checkout page line for line. And there were keywords I wanted to look for, right? And I found the keyword Block Inc., right? That's familiar, right?
And Block Inc. owns Square, which has very big policies against hate-filled and discriminatory fundraising. So Keandria, I hope I'm saying that right, launched a coordinated campaign to flood with complaints, crashing the support bot of Block Inc. and dropping the stock over 24.5% after it crashed. Coders started volunteering to join in and monitor the actual processing, and what you saw is they tried to switch it over to Stripe. She's urging people to file complaints with the FTC and the CFPB. It's only going to help increase the chance of a paper trail and holding platforms like this accountable. Also, side note, she does mention that she is receiving death threats, but to go ahead and tag her in this information. So if you are a white creator particularly, tag the original creator. You can file a complaint with Square or Block. You can email Square directly. You can report to the federal agencies, and then obviously file and tag the original creator that had this idea. And if you're wondering what the end goal is here, I'll let her finish it out.
I'll tell you about this payment processor and their so-called policy. Now, Square and Block Inc. have a policy that details that not only do they have the right to pause your payouts, but they have a right to hold the funds indefinitely. If they find that you violated their policy or if they stop payment for any reason, they have the right to hold that money to protect them from disputes. So we're hoping that they hold the
Racism is the actual reason that millennials wore business attire to the club back in 2007. Club owners would watch BET and write down every outfit they saw in the music videos and use that as a dress code. Every style we popularized got forbidden, so all we had left was our office attire. Since we started wearing business attire and we gatekeep everything that is cool, everybody else started wearing business attire too. Everybody wants to laugh about it like it's a cute, funny quirk, when really it was a trauma response. Who said that? Who said that?
Let's start the week with something bittersweet from the archives. All right, this comes from the Tennessean newspaper from September 25th, 1903. The Tennessean at the time was a white newspaper, so pardon my language as I read. Jefferson and Mary Burt are reunited in marriage. Special dispatch to the American, Shelbyville, Tennessee, September 24. A somewhat romantic marriage occurred in colored circles last night. The facts about it are these. Before the Civil War and in slave times, Jefferson, a slave belonging to the Fearsons of this county, and Mary Burt, a slave belonging to Thomas Burt, lived together as man and wife under the old slave system of marriage. But a few years before the Civil War, Mr. Burt sold Mary to an Arkansas man who took her to that state, and there she has since resided, while Jeff still remained here. A few days ago, however, Mary returned here on a visit to some of her relatives. Soon after her arrival, she happened to meet Jeff, her one-time husband, whom she thought was long since dead. At this meeting, the old love was soon revived, and the two were reunited by legally constituted marriage bonds last night. Dr. Stevens of the Methodist Episcopal Church officiating. Both have hosts of friends among white people who are glad to see them reunited after a separation of 44 years. So I came across this while doing research for my book, and as with most sources that were written by white people about black people, there's just a lot we're never going to know about Jeff and Mary. But what this source is a really great example of what we can know about white people at the time, and what that tells us about the way that Tennesseans wanted to be perceived at that time. For example, I think this sentence here is super interesting and telling, right? Both have hosts of friends among the white people who are glad to see them reunited after separation of 44 years. To me, this is also an example of how Tennesseans and all Americans were really good at glossing over the horrors of slavery in order to kind of point out how far they have come, right? This idea of like, hey, there were a lot of white people there and they were super happy about this. I'm sure they were, right? Of course they were. But also, and let's not forget, right, it was a white person who sold away this woman, and generally enslavers knew about the romantic and the family lives of the people that they enslaved, right? They just didn't care because legally they didn't have to care. I think more than anything, this shows that David Bligh's theory in Race and Reconciliation is true, right? That white Americans wanted to smooth over the conflict of the Civil War so badly, right? Wanted to reconcile and become one country again so badly that they were willing to throw black pain under the bus in order to get there. And that is why we're the way we are now.
A comment that was like one of the worst effects of American imperialism is the globalization of the exploitation of black culture, right? Because if you have a country with an American military base, 100% your media has been affected by America. It's been fed to you in a certain way with America's soft power. With no context, but the subtext in the media that would be harmful in America is still being sent overseas. And then you add on global anti-blackness, which is why African countries, anything sub-Saharan, is seen as lesser. There's also race science, like black people being seen as inherently inferior just off the basis of being black. You add colorism on top of that, which doesn't have to be one-to-one with black people, right? Because it can be in several different cultures. But if dark skin is considered poor, it's considered uneducated, it's considered something not elegant, not clean, it's just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of things. And so when you try to have conversations where you're like, hey, there's a lot of really deep history here that goes more than just aesthetics, more than just language, it's more than just words. You get hit with the it's not that deep, it's not that important because it's uncomfortable, and you actually have to speak about why things exist the way they exist and how they hurt and harm certain people and let other people get off the hook, especially when it comes to Black American stuff, because there's so many conversations to talk about the commodification of hood culture of blackness, but we can't even get there. Like that's an in-house conversation. It's like, hey, these are real people that you think are jokes and that you're laughing at and that you're trying to emulate, who have to navigate the world as the thing that you're dressing up as. That's not a costume for them. They experience the world in that way. The color of their skin, the way that they dress, the way that they speak is an active marker on their life forever. But having to try to explain that while navigating having to actually be Black in this world yourself.
Jerome, how old are you?
9.
9? Do you go to school?
Yes.
Where do you go to school, Jerome?
At the Okeechobee Elementary School.
I see. What is your sister's name?
Lois.
That's Lois. And what are your other sisters' names?
Catherine and Beulah.
Catherine and Beulah. What happened to your foot, Jerome?
Dig a nail in out there by the wash house.
So you drove a nail in out by the wash house. What did your mother do for that?
She put some alcohol on it.
Where do you sleep, Jerome?
In his bed.
You have this big bed?
Yes.
What happened? How did you get that hole in that bed there, Jerome?
The rats.
The what?
Rats.
Now, Jerome, you are taking care of Kathy, of Beulah, and Lois.
Yes.
Now, are you going to give them lunch today?
Yes.
What are you going to feed them?
I don't know.
Do you have any food here to give them?
Yes.
I see. What time does your mother come home?
I don't know.
The following day, Arlene King, the mother of Jerome, Kathy, Lois, and Beulah, again was picking beans.
Aileen King, I saw your children yesterday at the Okeechobee camp. Why didn't you put them in the nursery?
I don't make enough to pay for it.
How much does it cost to put them in?
85 cents.
85 cents.
That's right.
Aileen, what time did you come out the field this morning?
6 o'clock.
What time will you get home?
About 3:30, 4 o'clock.
6 this morning to 4 o'clock this afternoon.
That's right.
How much did you earn?
$1.
$1?
That's right. $1.
Is that because the beans were of poor quality?
That's right.
Has this happened before?
That's right.
How much will your food cost you today?
About $2.
Aileen, how old are you?
29.
How many children do you have?
14.
How old were you when you first started working in the fields?
8.
You've been working 21 years in the fields?
That's right.
Aileen, do you...
Our digital PDF, Black History Facts You Probably Didn't Learn in School, is full of black stories and facts that aren't usually taught in school. The PDF includes information that is often overlooked in traditional education and history books. The digital PDF can be downloaded and read at your convenience. You don't want to miss out on the chance to uncover the untold black history facts and stories.
When studying American history, one of the most important questions to answer is how did Americans justify slavery? How did they convince themselves that they had the right to own black people as property? What we find is that they had numerous ways to justify slavery, including philosophy, religion, science, and straight-up lies and self-deception. One prominent way that slave owners justified slavery was by turning to the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, who is without a doubt one of the most famous philosophers in human history. American education in the 18th and 19th centuries had a heavy focus on ancient Greece and Rome, and Aristotle's philosophy was studied by many Americans, including the Founding Fathers. Even though Aristotle was extremely intelligent and a very influential thinker, he left the world a dark legacy when it came to his views on slavery. Aristotle believed that slavery was normal and natural, and that some men were born to be masters and others were born to be slaves. He argued that humanity is divided into two, the masters and the slaves, or those who have the right to command and those who are born to obey. Therefore, to justify slavery, all American slave owners had to do was point to Aristotle. They argued that white men were the natural-born masters and black people were the natural-born slaves. However, an even greater justification for slavery than Aristotle was Christianity. Slave owners frequently justified the right to own black people as property by citing the Bible and arguing that slavery was sanctioned by God. As Samuel F.B. Morse put it, slavery per se is not a sin. It is a social construction ordained from the beginning of the world for the wisest purposes, benevolent and disciplinary, by divine wisdom. There are plenty of passages from both the Old and New Testament that condone slavery. For example, Exodus provides detailed rules about owning slaves and tells slave owners that the slave is their property. In the New Testament, Paul says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it not only when their eye is on you and to gain their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord." Slave owners would often read the Bible out loud to their slaves to show them that God approved of their enslavement. For example, when Solomon Northrop was enslaved in Louisiana, his master would preach pro-slavery sermons on Sundays. His favorite part of the Bible was Luke chapter 12, verse 47, which states, "The servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready, or does not do what the master wants, will be beaten with many blows." Solomon Northrop described how after reading this line, his master would explain, "That inward that don't take care, that don't obey his Lord, that's his master. That there inward shall be beaten with many stripes." Now many signifies a great many. 40, 100, 150, that's scripture. One of the most popular ways that slave owners used the Bible to justify slavery was through the curse of Ham. Most of you are probably familiar with the story of Noah. In Genesis, we learn that God told Noah he was going to destroy the world in a great flood, and he instructed Noah to build an ark and fill it with 2 of every animal so he could repopulate the world after the flood was over. In the story, Noah obeyed God, and after the flood, he became a drunk. I mean, you can't really blame him. He did just watch God annihilate nearly every living being on earth. In Genesis, we hear of a strange story that involves one of Noah's drinking binges. One day, Noah gets drunk and passes out naked. His son Ham sees him and tells his 2 brothers, who cover up their father with a blanket. When Noah wakes up and realizes that his son saw him naked and dishonored him, he curses Ham's son Canaan and says, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be." Some Americans interpreted this passage from the Bible to mean that all of Ham's descendants were forever doomed to be slaves, and they argued that black skin was the mark of the curse of Ham. Therefore, when Americans sought to justify slavery, all they had to do was say it wasn't their fault. It was Noah who cursed them to be slaves, and since this came from the Bible, it was seen as the word of God. This story might seem ridiculous, but many slave owners used this argument to rationalize their right to own black people. It didn't matter that this story was irrational and absurd. The point is that they were able to use Christianity as an excuse to abuse and exploit black people. Slave owners also justified slavery through the scientific theories of the time, which were heavily influenced by racism and white supremacy. For example, the French scientist Georges Cuvier argued that there were 3 distinct races of human beings: the white Caucasian, the yellow Mongolian, and the black Ethiopian. He said the Caucasian is distinguished by the beauty of the oval formed by his head and the color of his hair. To this variety, the most highly civilized nations, and those which have generally held all others in subjection, are indebted for their origin. On the other hand, he argued, the Negro has always remained in the most complete state of utter barbarism. For scientists like this, the fact that white people enslaved black people was simply a law of nature. For men like this, slavery was the natural state of the black race. Others, like the French naturalist Georges Louis Buffon, believed that whites were helping black people by enslaving them. He believed that if black people were introduced to the cooler climate of the Americas, their skin would naturally turn white. He argued that in Europe, we behold the human form in its greatest perfection, and this is where we ought to form our ideas of the real and natural color of man. He said that if black people lived long enough in a cold climate, then their skin would become as white as the natives of Europe. Therefore, he believed that slavery was good for black people because it would eventually turn them white, which was the natural and perfect state of humanity. Never mind that human beings originated in Africa. Even abolitionists who opposed slavery still held racist ideas about black people. For example, the Philadelphia doctor Benjamin Rush believed that black skin was a disease that could be cured, and through the right treatment, black people could eventually become white. Another way that Americans justified slavery is arguing that by enslaving black people, they were doing them a favor. They argued that slavery was a moral good and benefited the slave. The man most responsible for this theory was George Fitzhugh from Virginia. In 1854, he published a book called Sociology for the South, where he argued that black people were inferior to whites and had to be slaves for their own good. Fitzhugh disagreed with the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. Instead, he argued, men are not born physically, morally, or intellectually equal. It would be far nearer to the truth to say that some were born with saddles on their backs and others booted and spurred to ride them, and the riding does them good. For Fitzhugh, black people were born to be slaves. He argued, the Negro is but a grown child and must be governed as a child. The master occupies toward him the place of parent or guardian. Fitzhugh believed that a free black person was an oxymoron and said he would become an insufferable burden to society. Society has the right to prevent this and can only do so by subjecting him to domestic slavery. Fitzhugh argued that the Negro race is inferior to the white race, and if black people were ever to live in freedom next to whites, then gradual but certain extermination would be their fate. Therefore, Fitzhugh believed that by enslaving black people, whites were helping them. He said that slavery Christianizes, protects, supports, and civilizes him. He told his readers that the Negro slaves of the South are the happiest and, in some sense, the freest people in the world. Clearly, Americans had no deficit of justifications for why they had the right to own black people as slaves. However, all of these justifications were meant to do one thing: hide the fact that the real reason why white people enslaved black people is because of greed, profit, and power. Slavery was an economic system that produced extreme wealth, and white supremacy was the ideological justification that upheld it. The reason why white people came up with so many justifications for slavery is because in their heart they knew that it was wrong. They knew that they had no right to exploit and brutalize black people, so they constantly had to reassure themselves and ease their conscience. They had to constantly defend and justify a system that was clearly evil. They had to find some way to sleep at night.
It is absolutely appalling that in this day and age that black people are still being killed by white people in the name of self-defense. You might have read about this story. Mr. Jordan Neely was killed on a New York City subway because this man right here feared for his life. Now, certainly Mr. Neely was acting in a way that was disturbing, had some mental health issues, but why is it that the first response and instinct from this particular man ended in the death of Mr. Neely? Did it not occur to speak to him, to attempt to de-escalate the situation, to distract him from what was going on? This is what this guy was thinking, that it was necessary to put this man in a chokehold? It ultimately ended in his death. The development of the racist trope, fear the black man, in the United States is a harmful narrative that has been perpetuated and continues to perpetuate discrimination and division and injustice. And it's essential that we confront its origins and consequences head on. The roots of this stereotype can be traced back to the era of slavery, where African Americans were dehumanized, exploited, and subjected to unspeakable cruelty. The degrading system relied on the propagation of fear, painting black men as dangerous and violent to justify their oppression. The slave owners perpetuated this notion to maintain control and suppress any resistance from those who sought their freedom. Unfortunately, after the abolition of slavery, the negative portrayals persisted. Stereotypes of hyper-aggressive, hyper-sexualized, and criminal black men embed our culture, perpetuating a cycle of fear and discrimination that continues to haunt us today. Throughout history, we have witnessed countless instances where fear the black man has devastating consequences. Innocent lives have been lost due to racial profiling, unjustified arrest, and excessive use of force by law enforcement officers has often ended in the death of black men. Black communities have been unfairly targeted, their members stigmatized and marginalized, leading to a deep-rooted mistrust between the police and the people that they are meant to serve and protect. It is crucial for us to recognize the destructive nature of such tropes and the impact that they have on our society. By perpetuating the myth of the dangerous black man, we perpetuate a system of institutionalized racism that perpetuates inequality and denies equal opportunities to countless individuals. As we move forward, it is our collective responsibility to challenge and dismantle these harmful narratives. Education plays a vital role in this process. We must teach our children that the future of our history as a nation is one that must encompass the struggles and contributions of all its diverse communities. We must foster empathy, understanding, and cultural appreciation to counter the stereotypes that have long plagued us. Additionally, we must actively work towards reforming the criminal justice system, addressing systemic biases, and holding those in power accountable for their actions. Community engagement, dialogue, and the promotion of inclusive policies will help us bridge the gaps that divide us and will help us ultimately build a more just and equitable society for all. The development of the racist trope, fear the black man, has a profound and lasting impact on our nation. We cannot change the past, but we can certainly change the future. By challenging and dismantling these harmful narratives, fostering empathy and understanding, and working towards justice and equality, we can break free from the shackles of racism and build a more inclusive and compassionate society for generations to come.
Shout out to the creators. That was a good one, right? Now you understand what I meant by black pain. Now it's been people actually cashing out of it, right? So that is just it. Black pain has become a product. Our trauma is sold in music, movies, headlines, and hashtags. But the people living that pain rarely see healing, justice, or wealth in return. From slavery to prisons, from protests to viral videos, America has learned how to profit off black suffering while refusing to pay reparations to rebuild the community it broke. In this video, we expose the system that turns our pain into profits, right? And challenge all of us to stop letting them feed off our trauma. So that is the whole aim of this video, to actually make you, right, see the system that turns our pains into profits and challenge all of us to stop letting them feed off our trauma. I hope you enjoyed this, right? I would like to see your thoughts in the comments. Do you have any suggestion? Let's see it, right, in the comments. Do not forget to type your thoughts there, subscribe, and also like this video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
You will hear about the African Union. Yes, it exists. But what is the effect of the African Union in reality? We cannot talk about integration in the theme and not talk about the African Union. Because it is this organization that should unite us, create real integration. But we regret to see these wars that persist on the African continent, killing millions of young people. And that this organization, which has heads of state, with armies, is unable to organize itself to support certain countries. The Union is not just a word. The Union is a symbol. And we, the youth, should learn a lesson from this situation to unite, to make integration a reality. I was unpleasantly surprised when Ethiopia, which hosts the headquarters of the African Union, was experiencing a conflict. And when I saw the Prime Minister put on a military uniform and announce the closure of the university in Addis Ababa to face the threat. I did not see any action from the African Union to protect these headquarters. Most Western states saw Addis Ababa falling, packing up and leaving. Ethiopia fought, found an internal solution, and is living more or less in peace today. The children of Congo have been dying for years. Several other conflicts, such as in Sudan, exist on the continent. We would have liked to see the African Union generate the forces and all the necessary strategies to support these states so they can regain peace. For nearly 10 years, the Sahel has been the theater of international terrorism. But we see no support from these organizations to find a solution to this problem. Worse, a few days ago, a country foreign to Africa openly announced having supported and participated in a cowardly terrorist and barbaric attack against the forces of our confederation in Tinsawatan. The African Union did not utter a word to condemn this interference by a state outside of Africa in the internal affairs of our states. I would like them to hear this and therefore break their silence and take action so that the youth can believe in the African Union.